All right, you miserable lot, listen up. Welcome to your first, and maybe your last, tactical briefing. You've been handed a rusty helmet, a musket that's seen better days, and a future that's mostly mud and misery. But before you get yourselves kicked to death for some forgotten turnip, I'm going to teach you how to stand in the right patch of mud.
And that's not just some flowery prose. That is the reality of Turnip28. It's bleak, it's absolutely ridiculous, and frankly, it's the only life you've got left. So let's at least try and make it last more than 5 minutes, shall we?
Burn this into your brains. Right now, this is it. This is the single most important rule on the entire battlefield. It decides everything: where you move, where you stand, and, yes, where you die. If you can understand this one rule, you might just figure out how to win. Ignore it? Well, you're just food for the roots.
So, here's the plan for today. We're going to start with that one rule to rule them all. Then, we'll get into your basic grunts, the clever ones, and the fast movers. After that, we'll see how you can mash them all together into something that actually looks like a fighting force. And finally, we'll find you a glorious, probably nonsensical purpose. So stop gawking and pay attention.
Look, I'm saying it again because I can see the vacant stares. The closest enemy unit. Every single decision you make about where to put your troops starts and ends with this. You don't win by having the best guns. You win by controlling the battlefield. You win by positioning your units to dictate who the closest target is. It's simple. Make the enemy shoot your cheap cannon fodder, not your expensive, hard-hitting brutes. Got it? Good.
Okay, let's get into the meat of it. Every regiment, every army is built on a foundation of infantry. In our world, you've basically got two types: the expendable, numerous fodder, and the hard-hitting, slightly less expendable brutes. Knowing where to put them is the real difference between having a solid battle line and just a buffet line for the enemy.
Think of it like this, okay? Fodder, they're your standard line infantry. Their job is to stand there, soak up bullets, and hold a piece of muddy ground with sheer numbers. Brutes, on the other hand, they're your elite shock troops. They are the hammer. And you don't use a hammer to block a bullet, you use it to smash things to bits. Their positioning has to reflect that job.
Your fodder units come in these big, ugly mobs of 12. And that number is absolutely key because of their safety in numbers rule. See, as long as you have more than 8 of these poor souls standing, they are completely fearless. That means you can position them right on an objective and they will just sit there and take punishment that would make any other unit break and run for the hills.
See? It's not just me saying it. Fodder are your workhorses. You put them on objectives, you put them directly in the enemy's way, and you let them do what they do best: die slowly while your more important units can get into a better position.
Now, brutes. They operate in smaller squads of 6. They've got better armor, and they are way better in a melee scrap. But there's only half as many of them. And that means every single loss hurts twice as much. You just can't afford to leave them out in the open to get peppered with shots.
So how do you position them? Easy. You protect them. You position your brutes behind your fodder line, or you stick them behind some solid cover. You keep them safe from enemy fire until the perfect moment, and then, and only then, do you unleash them on a weakened target. They are your decisive weapon, not a sandbag. Use them like one.
All right, moving on to the clever ones. Your specialists are what give you tactical flexibility. But none, and I mean none, is more critical to positioning than the humble chaff. They are your screen, they are your sacrificial pawn, and they are absolutely brilliant at their job.
This is basic tactics in the mud, people. Remember that golden rule? Closest target? Well, chaff get a free move at the very start of the game. So you push them out front, and suddenly they are the closest target. The enemy has to shoot at them, but they're a pain to actually hit. And just like that, you've bought your valuable units a turn to advance safely.
Chaff are a real finesse unit. They're hard to hit at range, but even better, they get to ignore the closest target rule themselves. This makes them absolutely perfect for sniping enemy officers, we call them snobs, or other high-value targets. Just whatever you do, don't let them get charged. They will fold like wet paper in melee. Position them to shoot, never to fight.
And then you have the Stump Gun. What a glorious, chaotic mess this thing is. Positioning it is the easiest part. You just plunk it down and it never moves again. The hard part is guessing whether it's about to vaporize an enemy unit from across the board, do absolutely nothing, or, just explode. You can't rely on it, but you better believe your opponent has to respect the threat.
Okay, time for the fast movers.
Cavalry gives you speed, and speed gives you even more control over positioning and dictating who that all-important closest target is. You've got two main flavors, the annoying whelps and the downright terrifying bastards.
So whelps are your light cavalry. Their job is to be an absolute pain in the neck, zipping around, grabbing objectives, and harassing the enemy's flanks. Bastards, on the other hand, they are your heavy hitters, your shock cavalry. You hold them back, waiting for that one perfect game-winning charge that just shatters an enemy unit.
And whelps can pull off this one trick that is just plain nasty. They have an ability called dash, so you can position them to ride up, take a pot shot, and then dash away, back behind your own lines or into cover. All of a sudden, they're no longer the closest target, and that big enemy unit that was about to shoot them has to find something else to do. It is the ultimate hit-and-run maneuver. So you know the individual pieces now, but how do you actually stick them together without just creating a complete mess? Look, a balanced force is a winning force. You're going to need a solid core to take hits, some real punching power, and a bit of tactical flexibility.
For your first few battles, don't overthink it. Just look at these lists here. They're all great starting points, and you should notice a pattern, right? A solid core of fodder to hold the line, some serious hitting power from either brutes or bastards, and a specialist unit, like Chaff or a Stump Gun, to give you some tricky options. It's that classic combo, an anvil, a hammer, and a scalpel.
So once you finally mastered the basics of not getting your entire regiment wiped out in the first turn, it's time to find a cause, some bizarre, fanatical belief to rally your troops around.
In this world, we call them cults. Each one gives your army its own unique rules, sometimes even new units, and a whole lot of weird thematic flavor. They add a whole new layer to your tactics, and of course, how you position your army on the field. So that's your final command for today. You now know the basics of positioning, you know how to use the mud and the rules to your advantage. The only real question left is, who or what are you all fighting for?
Will you fight for the slow, inevitable advance of the slug's lament? Or maybe the swarming terror of the uprising of the louse? Perhaps the gluttonous charge of the fungivorous herd is more your style. The choice is yours. Now get out of my sight and try not to die immediately. Dismissed.